I used to hate my mother. I mean, I really hated her more than anyone else in the whole world. But I didn't know then that she would ultimately be the one to save my life. Welcome to this explainer where I'm going to share a secret I never knew and tell you about the woman I completely and tragically misunderstood.
You know, every broken story has to start somewhere, right? Ours started with a sudden, just unthinkable tragedy. When I was little, my dad died in a factory accident. Literally, in a single afternoon, the entire foundation of our family was shattered. It left behind this massive void that changed absolutely everything.
And honestly, the most heartbreaking part of it all? I barely remembered him. To me, he was really just an emotional blank space. But for my mom, it meant she was completely, crushingly alone. No partner to share the grief with, no one to help pay the bills. The entire burden of our survival just instantly fell right on her shoulders.
So, Mom never remarried. Instead, she just threw herself into pure survival mode. She worked two incredibly physical, exhausting jobs. And it wasn't out of ambition, it was out of desperate necessity, just to keep a roof over our heads. But when you're a kid, you don't really see that invisible labor. All I saw was her absence.
Long before the sun even came up, she was out cleaning offices. Then in the afternoon, when I was finally home from school, wide awake and just really wanting my mom, she was absent, desperately trying to catch just a few minutes of sleep. And at night, she was right back on her feet, stocking grocery store shelves. It was this relentless cycle that just never stopped.
But the heavy, really tragic truth is, I didn't know. When you're a young girl, you don't understand things like rent, or bills, or just bone-deep exhaustion. You just feel the empty spaces in your home. I was completely blinded by my own childhood innocence. All I knew was that she wasn't there.
Looking back, it's incredibly painful to see that massive disconnect. The reality was a woman working two demanding jobs just to keep me fed. But my perception, I just assumed she didn't care enough to stay home with me. The very labor that was meant to sustain my life, I somehow interpreted as a cold, distant lack of love. That colossal misunderstanding honestly might have defined my entire life if it wasn't for one completely ordinary afternoon. I was just going about my day, doing my own thing, when I accidentally overheard two of our neighbors talking. It was private conversation, definitely not meant for my ears, but what they said changed literally everything. 5. It seems like such a tiny, insignificant number, doesn't it? But it represents the exact number of years my mother went without buying herself a single new pair of shoes. 5 whole years of walking to cleaning jobs, standing on her feet stocking shelves, doing it all on entirely worn-out soles. Hearing the neighbor actually say it out loud, she hasn't bought new shoes in 5 years. Wow, it was just jarring. Hearing an outsider's voice, this hidden sacrifice made it so incredibly tangible. The words just hung there in the air, challenging absolutely everything I thought I knew about my supposedly distant mother. And then, the neighbor added something else. They said, every dollar goes to her daughter. Every single dollar. You see, this wasn't just about a pair of shoes. This was a woman systematically erasing her own needs, her own comforts, and her own identity, just so I could exist. So, faced with that overwhelming revelation, how do you think I reacted? It takes some genuine vulnerability to admit this to you right now, but I rolled my eyes. I literally thought they were just exaggerating. I was so deeply entrenched in my own hurt, so utterly convinced of my own abandonment that I completely refused to see the truth right in front of me. Which leads to this haunting question. If Mom loved me that much, why did it never feel like love? The undeniable facts of her grueling labor were laid right out before me, but my internal feelings of being unloved were just as real. Sometimes facts and feelings just tragically fail to align. Well, we have only just scratched the surface of this complicated, heartbreaking dynamic. The consequences of my profound misunderstanding were about to reach a dangerous boiling point. Make sure you don't miss part 3 of this explainer, my biggest mistake, where we're going to see the unforgettable consequences of failing to recognize the love right in front of us, and the night that changed absolutely everything.